keep us up at night or thinking about what to do, which is, I think, helpful.
Right.
And certainly while this role comes with challenges, it's also incredibly rewarding to, witness, a project progress from vision. And certainly what I've learned over years and in these past couple of kind of, troubled years in the world, what these projects mean to the community continue to prove to me every day that arts are essential. And
Mhm.
we have to continue to focus on that for our communities, for our families, for people, that we know. And that's the passion from our team and myself of why we do stay up at night.
Yeah,
Because
yeah, yeah.
it's sometimes a requirement.
Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of Nakoto Building Arts. I'm your host, Nakoto, and today I'd like to welcome another great guest to the podcast, Matt Edwards. Matt is the Senior Vice President and Project Executive at Garfield Public Private, LLC, a national development services provider focusing exclusively on public and public-private developments. With over 15 years of real estate experience and development experience, Matt has primarily focused on performing arts centers, theaters, museums, and cultural venues. His expertise is working with nonprofit organizations and public-private developments focused on multi-purpose venues and culturally significant projects representing over $2 billion in development costs. A few of his notable projects include the Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, Stage 2 in Orlando, Florida, a 137 square foot multi-form theater that seats 1,700. The Tobin Center of the Performing Arts in San Antonio, Texas, 179,000 square foot historic revitalization to a 1,750 seat theater and outdoor event space, and TCU School of Music in Fort Worth, Texas, a 60,000 square foot building encompassing the recently opened 717 seat Van Cliburn Concert Hall and a music center with rehearsal, instruction, and practice space. It gives me great pleasure to welcome Matt Edwards to the podcast. How are you today, Matt?
Doing great. Thanks for having me, Dakota. A lot of tongue twisters as you have to spit out all the various names of these projects and
Yeah.
people involved and all the details. So I'm very happy to be here and happy you've been on this venture for some time and happy to kind of add to the mix of cast of characters you've been able to talk to.
Yeah.
So thanks for having me.
Yeah. That's great. I've had several acousticians on board with AV and theater planners, some architects, theater consultants, and I wanted to see if I can get some type of idea and experience from someone that's on the developer side, the one that puts it all together and, make the magic happen, so to speak. So that's why I'm so glad and grateful that you said you can join me for this podcast today. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
I think I first met you also on one of those projects I listed, the TCU School of Music that you were working on there, and glad to see that had opened up a couple of maybe 1 or 2 years ago, right? So
Yeah, I think it officially opened, I think in 22. It was again one of those projects that kind of went through the COVID period and had its
yeah,
issues and things like that, and but very successful, a great space, and we're happy to be a part of it. Actually, one of the
yeah,
few, I'm based in Dallas Fort Worth, but one of the few local projects I've been able to work on because
yeah,
these cultural type projects don't all live in your backyard, so you get to hop on an airplane from time to time and go see the world. That's kind of part
yeah,
of it.
yeah, yeah.
It's fun
I
to
had
have
that.
one. It was fun to have one in your backyard to just, literally drive 5 miles down the street to work on.
Awesome. Yeah, yeah. We run into the same thing on the cost consulting side, where it's like I'm in Tampa, so not always, don't get a chance to work on projects. We live in the city, but not really work in the city because all the projects are outside of the city, outside of the state, actually. So yeah, interesting. But I like to find out before we go into what you do and what we can learn from you on this podcast. like to find out a little bit about your background. So take me back to the beginning. Where are you from and where you're living now?
Sure. So, born and raised in Texas, kind of up and down the 35 track from kind of Dallas to Austin. Uh, Honestly, wasn't exposed to a lot of arts growing up. Went to museums on field trips and probably went to a couple performances, but didn't really have a heavy influence on my educational path, at least.
Mhm.
I'm sure, like many kids, I had piano lessons with my mom. That didn't pan out. I just like got bored of that after not very long. And I did play saxophone for a few years in junior high and
Okay.
high school. So I had like a music inkling, but obviously didn't think of that about that from a career perspective. Oddly enough, I went to a small high school about an hour south of Dallas called Maypearl ISD, very small town of like 700 people. So my graduating class was like 60 people. So a very small, kind of Texas town. And
Yeah.
uh,
That's
oddly enough, coming out of high school, I wanted to be a stockbroker. I wanted to work on Wall Street.
really.
That's
Oh.
I loved I loved like the movie Wall Street, and there was a bunch of other kind of movies around that. And for whatever reason, that's who I thought I wanted to be coming from small town Texas.
Now, did you want to be Gordon Gecko or what?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of wanted to wear the kind of striped suit and
Yeah,
kind of
yeah, I mean,
have that demeanor and kind of be
yeah,
that
yeah.
whatever. But so that led me. I ended up going to the University of Texas at Austin and attended their business school,
Okay.
and started my major in finance. So I was kind of on that path, and I was probably a year and a half in, and said, "What in the heck am I doing here?"
Oh, wow, wow.
I think it was one of my sophomore semesters where I think I had three different finance classes and two accounting classes, and I was so just overwhelmed of like, this is really what this industry is. And
Hmm.
looking at the future, the last 2 or 3 years of my tenure would be, it was going to be that on repeat.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
I kind of paused for a moment and try to figure out what to do. And oddly enough, within the business school there, within the McCombs Business School, they had a program called Engineering Route to Business,
Hmm.
and which basically it wasn't a dual major, but it allowed you to pair a business major with an engineering major, and you kind of still got a business degree. But to me, it was like this allows at least some flexibility or like some different classes where I'm not just finance crunching numbers or whatever.
Hmm.
So I ended up sticking with finance as my business sector, and I paired it up with architectural engineering. And to be honest, had no idea at that time how valuable that may be in working in cultural arts, but being kind of a developer, project manager,
Hmm.
overseeing both certainly the architectural side of things, but even more importantly, the kind of the finance and development side of things.
Hmm.
So I'm probably one of those few that my degree ended up working for my career,
Oh, yeah.
but I had no idea at that time. So, and then post school, I had some friends that were mostly architects. They were all kind of going into different architectural firms, and I did the same. I worked for a couple small architecture firms in Austin,
Oh,
in the
awesome.
Austin area, and didn't enjoy it at all.
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
I remember, as a at that level, I mean, you're not really, designing much. You're doing mostly grunt work, and I
Right.
kind of vividly remember being like, you're on door hardware schedules, and
Yeah.
I just remember going like, doing here again? Like, coordinating like security details with door. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
That's not
entertaining. No,
that's not sexy. That's not the the
no.
fun part of it.
So I kind of took a pause again very early in my career. I mean, I was like a year and a half in, and I had a friend who lived in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I ended up moving in with him, kind of searching for jobs in that area. And I was kind of looking for like a project management role. I didn't have any idea what that was. It had management in it, so I was like,
Mhm.
surely it pays well, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
And ended up landing a role as an assistant project manager with a firm in Fort Worth that focused kind of on project management, owners representation services, and worked on a couple projects early there. And I'd probably only been there probably less than a year, and I
Mhm.
got exposed to the performing arts type projects. So I had no idea what that meant or what that
Right,
was.
right.
So we had a project that was under construction in Virginia. It was the Richmond Center stage at the time. It's now called the Dominion Center, but it was under construction. And then we were also under design on the Smith Center in Las
Mhm.
Vegas. So I had this kind of unique opportunity to one, I just started in this kind of project management field, but I had a project under construction and one under design at the same time,
Mhm.
which I think expedited my kind of learning curve to understand like one, just the nomenclature, people talking
Mhm.
about prosceniums. I don't know what the heck, I had no
Right,
idea
right,
what that was.
exactly.
And that's a very important thing you probably should
Yeah,
know if you're working
yeah,
on
yeah, yeah,
a
especially,
venue
yeah.
like that. So again, I kind of had the luxury of seeing both phases of those concurrently, and it just helped my kind of learning curve
Mhm.
go very quickly. I think, as you know me, I'm not shy to ask questions to
Right.
our expert acousticians and theater planners, cost consultants, architects, all of our kind of friendly partners in this industry. And to be honest, I wake up today and it's been almost 20 years, and I've been privileged to kind of focus my career on nothing but cultural venues, whether it's, performing arts or music centers or museums or other kind of
Mhm.
cultural venues. I really am honored and privileged to be able to kind of call that my resume and look forward to
Mhm.
the next 20 plus years of kind of continuing
Yeah,
that.
yeah,
So
awesome.
it's
And
been an odd landing spot, but when you look back at it holistically, it's like, well, this all made sense. But at each
right,
moment, nothing made sense. You just kind of
yeah, yeah.
learn as you go.
Because you went from Austin, so you were in Austin, then moved to Dallas. How far is that away? Austin and Dallas?
It's only about 2.5, 3 hour
2.5,
drive.
3 hours. Okay.
Yeah.
So did you relocate, or did you just live in Austin and work in Dallas when you moved in Fort
Yeah,
Worth
I
area?
ended up
Mhm.
I ended up moving with a high school friend of mine who was
Okay.
a high school football coach up here in the DFW area, and we just got an apartment together. And I
Yeah.
didn't even have a job at that time. I was just kind of searching,
Yeah.
but I knew I had to get away from what I was doing.
Right. Right. And
So I
Austin
did.
wasn't. I
Yeah,
was saying Austin wasn't. It wasn't booming at the time. Like right now, when you think of Austin, it's like everyone is moving there, and it's a boom town. So what was
yeah.
it
It
like that?
had it had not gotten to that
Okay.
level.
Okay.
I think part of me leaving there was I had a lot of college friends that had stayed there,
Okay.
and they'd all graduated as I had, and they were all kind of extending their college years a bit
Yeah.
as a bartender, or still kind of, I've graduated now, but I kind of like this lifestyle that
Right.
I'm doing.
Right. Right.
And so I kind of had to get away from some of that to say, I think I am going to go try to, start something different and not
Yeah.
pretend I'm still in college.
Yeah.
I think that was part of I had a friend, I knew someone it could be come with, and obviously not too far of a kind of relocation effort either. So
Yeah, wow, wow. So you joined this other company in Dallas Fort Worth. You're working on the Performing Arts Center into this new world. I was kind of like, when I moved into the performing arts world, it was just totally different. And it's a long learning curve of understanding all the points. Still get mixed up sometimes when you think of stage right or stage left. What is house right, house so there's a
yeah,
lot of intricacies into learning about the buildings that we work on. How was your experience when working on these projects, the Smith Center and
it's been incredible. I mean, they're
yeah.
incredible visions. Both most all these projects are kind of public-private efforts.
Mhm.
Where there's a public component of it, and then there's a lot of philanthropic gifts towards these projects, which that kind of pulls at my heartstrings. Like we're trying to, this is not just another development that you're trying to make money on or something. That's
Right,
not really
right.
the purpose for these at all. They're all very heavily community public facing developments,
Mhm.
which
Yeah,
just makes you work that much harder. It makes you, pick up the pace and learn as quick as you can. And that's kind of what, like I said, I've definitely leaned on all the experts in the industry over time, and
right,
I still do as of just
right,
this
right.
morning calls I had to make
Yeah, right,
to
right, right,
continue that effort. And it really is a kind of a team effort of delivering these projects successfully. They're hard, they're
yeah,
challenging,
yeah,
they're very unique.
right.
Uh, most significant contractors don't really understand the intricacies of what this is important. So, and it took me a little bit of time and I still struggle sometimes with our acoustician friends and theater
Right,
planning
right,
friends. Like, why do we have to do it that way? That's like 10 times more expensive than some
right,
other way that we could do it. And I can normally be convinced if that's the right, if that's the right thing to
right,
do.
right, right.
So,
So now you with Garfield Public Private, and you lead the performing arts sector. You're senior vice president, project executive. So tell me a little bit about this company, Garfield Public.
Sure. So I think, as you mentioned, kind of at the very beginning, or a national full service real estate developer. Sometimes we're also called a project manager, an owner's representative, a development consultant. So we're kind of all called different things, but we're really looking to be innovative and cost effective in the financing strategies and kind of turnkey delivery methods, tailored towards public-private developments. Our scope is kind of the easiest way to talk through it, where it's kind of broken down. Our services, sorry, are kind of broken down into four kind of main categories. The first is kind of the strategic planning or consulting work that we do, to where that comprises of a needs assessment, any kind of market or economic analysis around the specific project, developing all the kind of early budget schedule programming documents, with assistance of architects and cost consultants, and that certainly preparing an operating pro forma, which is key, as well as kind of getting some initial ideas of how we would structure any kind of financing or fundraising for the project. And in the end, that kind of results in a full business plan to just kind of lay out a realistic foundation for a development, whether it's a performing arts center, a hotel, a city hall, or whatever it may be. That kind of first phase of work is the same for them all, right? So and then the next phase is just the kind of development phase, the kind of, I would say, what traditional project manager or owner's rep would do, that's not also kind of in the developer world, where you're procuring the design and construction teams, you're leading the client through the design and construction process, you're overseeing construction, and then you're kind of overseeing pre-opening and kind of close out turnovers. That's kind of I'd say the traditional kind of development piece. I think what makes us a little unique is two things. One, the kind of financing relationships we have and the services we offer. So we'll help develop the plan of finance and deal structuring on a project. We also assist in any kind of drafting of legal documents or ownership or financing documents, which is very key. We oversee any kind of bond or financial model that happens with financial advisors and bond counsel that are involved with these communities. And we also kind of lead the fundraising and naming rights efforts. So this part's been key to me, and why I'm thrilled to be with the Garfield team of, we're helping actually create these cultural arts projects, because we're helping with the funding and financing structures that allow some of these to push forward at a faster pace. And I think the two of us know, and lots of our colleagues know, that these projects take 5, 10, 20 years just to develop, to start the process. So if there's a way for us to condense that by anything, even if it's a year, 5 years, whatever, we're saving them significant, millions upon millions of dollars, if we can, help get creative on the financing and fundraising side to help expedite these projects. We've been on many of these that, why am I on this project for 12 years and we haven't even started design?
Right.
Where we continue to update our cost estimates with our friends at Venue, and we don't like doing that because they keep going.
Escalation.
So I think that's a key part of our structure, is to help expedite and get creative, where sometimes a project gets stuck and we can kind of help get it out of the rut and get it on the right track and moving forward. And then lastly, I'll be brief on this. We can also serve as an asset manager. So on a lot of the properties we develop, we stay involved as the asset manager to kind of ensure the performance standards are met, operation and financial performances are optimized, the facilities are maintained, and it stays kind of a first class, standard that was established at opening. So it really is a beginning to end, list of services, and every project's unique. So we don't do all that for all projects. It depends on what's needed, but I think the kind of front end on the strategic planning side, and then the back end on the asset management side is very unique, and why we're, typically, coined as a development manager, sorry. Again, called lots of different things, but it's kind of what we coin ourselves as, because of those different services we provide.
Yeah, usually, to think about it, usually when I think of a developer, I'm thinking of, the almost the suit wearing, Donald Trump, or somebody that goes in to build a building at the lowest cost. You hear the stories about some of the developers like a Donald Trump that can, I don't want to say gouge, but not pay certain people, trying to cut costs at any cost. But you're not that type. So, And you look at these projects you're working on, the performing arts centers, I guess you bring that aspect of understanding the building. So you're not going to look at just the cost and say, oh, just remove the the stage house or remove the stage grid. You have an understanding of the performing arts center. It's not just about the bottom line, but more about the full use of the facility itself.
Yeah, we're absolutely not a traditional developer to where we end up owning any of these buildings and
Okay.
making money off of them. So I mean, a traditional developer would build whatever, a Walmart, a mixed use space, whatever it may be. They're going to own and operate that, and the investment that they make from the capital side, they're looking to get dividends on. It's
Okay.
open, making money. So on most all of our projects, they're not all public private, but most of them are, to where it ends up being a publicly owned asset to that city, county, state. It's not an asset to Garfield Public Private. So it truly is we're trying to benefit these communities. So we're a developer, but not in the traditional sense. We're not building a bunch of mixed use type spaces, and certainly on the performing arts space, most of them are owned by the municipality and they're operated by a 501c3 nonprofit. So we're helping them build the model to successfully finance and fundraise, build, and then maintain operations and operate long term. So we're not a traditional developer where we own a lot of assets. The communities own them. It's their asset to benefit from them, right? So that's kind of our approach. Is these are all community driven projects, whether they're performing arts or hotels or whatever, but the asset needs to be owned by the city or county or whatever kind of public agency is involved in it. So that's kind of our perspective on it.
Okay, so that you're taking what the city or whatever performing arts group that would hire you, and they're basically giving you their vision or their baby, so to speak, and you are managing the process for them because they may not have the capabilities of doing it, right? And you take that and you bring the teams together.
Or they can't do it in their traditional, procurement bid process. They can engage a P3 developer, and then we can assemble the right team that can successfully deliver the project on time and under budget, and can do it at an expedited pace. That's kind of that's the key for us.
And within this company, Garfield, you have different sectors, and your sector is the performing arts sector.
We'll work on any kind of public infrastructure project, but I think our key strengths, and so we're currently a staff of 12. We're a small kind of nimble group of really good talent, really good experts in the industry, and we're most on some of our office side kind of hotel convention center type work. We just opened 3 hotel convention centers in Texas early this year in 2023. And then the other half of our office, with Greg Garfield and myself and Sandra Ortega and some others in our office, are more focused on the cultural realm. And we bounce back and forth. We all help each other, but our experience is more geared towards, the cultural, performing arts, museums, event center type projects. But, we explore all kinds of avenues. We build parking garages and other things that are, the P3 model can sustain as well. So it's not all that, but I think my passion is certainly, in this cultural realm and what I've done in my career, and certainly plan to continue to.
Yeah. So you bring a wealth of experience, Matt, in all these different types of projects, performing arts centers. Can you share some of one or two of your favorite projects that you worked on?
Sure. One of my favorites, and I'll pull up some photos in just a second. One of my favorites is the Smith Center I mentioned earlier in Las Vegas.
Las Vegas, yeah.
This was particularly special to me because I moved out to Las Vegas during the construction phase of this. So from 2009 to 2012, I lived in Las Vegas in an apartment by myself in the middle of Las Vegas, and kind of served as our on-site project manager for that 3-year construction duration. And, this was a public-private partnership with the city of Las Vegas and the 501c3 nonprofit. It was actually funded through a lot of philanthropic support and car rental tax. So they started a car rental tax, and they issued a bond based on the proceeds they were receiving from that. Was the 2 main sources. So this included a 2,050-seat multi-purpose hall, a cabaret jazz space, a studio theater, And what was unique to me is during the development of the Performing Arts Center itself, we added on a children's museum, a parking garage, ended up developing what is called Symphony Park, which is kind of the gateway into this overall development. So this started as a huge development on this kind of 60-acre old Union Pacific Railroad lot and just grew and grew and grew. So I found that quite interesting as we started our process. So
So, tell me. So when it came up as Las Vegas, did the team get together and say who wants to go to Las Vegas? And yeah, so
I was in my younger years,
yeah, it's
obviously.
like I'll
I'm
go.
not sure. I'm not sure if I volunteered exactly, but it was probably a nomination slash. I was working on it during the design phase, so
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
it kind of happened that way. But
yeah.
certainly an
Somebody has to
interesting.
do it.
Somebody
Somebody
had.
has to do it. Yeah.
I'm gonna. Can you? It says the host is disabled. Screen sharing. I'll
Uh-oh.
share photos real quick. Um, but yeah, it was an interesting, very interesting place to live. I mean, it's a very transient community. So people come and go, and met a lot of good friends out there. I saw some friends that live out there. So it was a very kind of unique experience, but I was certainly happy to move back to Texas at the completion of the project. So I'm going to share my screen to share a couple photos. Can you see everything, Dakota?
There it is. Yeah, perfect.
So this is just an exterior photo. This is actually standing
Mhm.
in Symphony Park, which is kind of this development. So on the left here, this is the main hall, the Reynolds Hall. What I
Yeah.
thought was there are a lot of cool features of this. I'm going to show some interior shots, but one thing that was really kind of fun and unique on this is this big 17-story tower here. It actually has 47 what were called carillon bells that were crafted and are hung up in this bell tower that can be played on a keyboard in a little special room here.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's very unique and was a very kind of odd kind of side project within the project that required quite a bit of attention. So
Mhm.
uh, something just, I mean, there's only like one or two kind of bell, manufacturing companies in the world. And so it
Yeah.
was very unique to have that kind of be part of this development. Here on the right, this is the education center, which houses
Mhm.
the cabaret jazz space and the studio theater and classrooms and other things. So kind of a campus driven uh, site plan. Here is a
Art
view
Deco
inside.
style there.
Yeah, here's a
Yeah.
view
Yeah.
inside of Reynolds Hall. So a
Hmm.
gorgeous room. I will mention at least the core team. The design architect was David Schwartz Architects, along with
Yeah.
HKS Architects was the architectural team, and then the theater planner was Fisher Dax, and the acoustician was Acoustics. So a pretty rock solid. I know you've interviewed some of those team members already on your podcast, Makoto, and
Oh
I
yeah.
think you'll continue to know it's a pretty small world of the experts for these types of
Exactly.
projects. But just a gorgeous room.
Yeah.
Again, this is the 2,050 seat space, on stage looking out into the audience chamber. Pretty traditional design, but just excellent, and excellent acoustics as well.
And I will say, Matt, too, I did get a chance to work on this building with my old company. So I'm familiar with this design. And I look up in the corner that acoustic volume back there. You don't really see that in these buildings that much now. But I think that was a Artec design originally, the old Artec, Russ Johnson. He used to do these huge volumes up there, up in the like above 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth level, all the way up that captures
Yeah,
uh, the sound,
yeah. It has those big
similar
two
to
big
a Strass.
has, has those two big chambers up top
The
that can
chambers,
be,
yeah,
yeah, curtains can be drawn either way.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, acoustics was an excellent partner on this project. So here's a
Mhm.
view looking from the audience chamber to the stage. So here's this ever so important proscenium that I had no idea what that word was early in my career, but I
Man,
think
wow, look at that.
it's kind of it becomes the demarcation of like obviously stage house to audience chamber, but even from an overall site planning and architectural perspective, like identifying this location kind of sets the stage literally for the design of the building. So
Hmm.
but just a gorgeous facility. We got one more photo. This is their lobby.
Beautiful, yeah.
What I wanted to hit on here is this project was bid in 2008, 2009 during the economic
Hmm.
recession.
Right.
This project was probably one of the few that benefited from that significantly, because the funds were all in place prior to construction, and we had just gone through a massive value engineering effort. I think it was 40 or $50 million out of this development before construction, and we were able to add most, if not all of it, back in. So all the railings had been, changed from stainless steel to aluminum. That all got upgraded, during construction, because prices just were, and
Right.
everything
Right.
related. You could add whatever you wanted. I got it. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. I mean, it was
Right. Right.
incredible. So this
It-
lobby, I think even more so than the hall itself, showcases it's all marble. The floor, the walls, everything is
it's
stainless steel. This is kind of a one I lived there and got to work on it every day, but this is a once in a lifetime
right.
type of project, even given that bidding environment that, in your role, Dakota, we look at cost per square foot.
Hmm.
This one doesn't align with the other ones.
No.
Yet the finishes are probably better than most all the halls that we work in. So it's a very strange anomaly that
Mhm.
happened here, but it happened for some reasons. But a
Yeah.
gorgeous lobby that they also use for event space.
Some
And then
things can go. I was gonna say some things can go off of it. You have the add options list, but now you can put it all into the actual bid number now.
I know it was an it was a very odd experience because
Yeah.
the bid phase, and even once we started construction, the subcontractors were like, we can get stainless for the same basically price as aluminum. And we're like, well, let's get it. I mean, the answer was
Yeah.
like,
Right.
absolutely. Like, let's, and
Yes.
we upgraded some things like terrazzo to the boxes in the hall. And that was done at a very low premium, because it was like, why would you not do this for a couple $100,000 when the value is like millions?
Right.
So very interesting process.
Yeah.
And then one other project I wanted to hit on quickly more recently, and you mentioned this at the beginning as well. This is the Steinmetz Hall as part of the Dr. Phillips Center campus in Orlando that opened at the beginning of 2022. A very unique project. This is a view looking at what is called the cassette. So what's very
Mm.
unique about this project is its kind of transformability, both from the seating system, which I'll hit on in a minute, and the backstage here. So, a lot of halls have different towers that you roll in that kind of create
Mhm.
this backstage. Well, this is all one piece of architecture that sits on basically railroad tracks and retracts back into a garage that's built
Amazing.
just back of the stage house. So the architectural and engineering feat and construction of this was
Mhm.
just incredible. But you can kind of see from a picture perspective, even when you're in the room, it looks like it's all just, it
Part of it.
doesn't
Yeah.
move. It looks like it's just
Hmm.
part of the building, and that was
Hmm.
certainly intent. But it's just a very kind of unique
Hmm.
piece of the program.
Yeah.
Here's
Eh,
looking back out into the audience chamber, kind of just looking at the fixed seating. I think what I wanted to point out here is all the orchestra seats are actually on gala lifts. So this
mm.
can transform into a flat floor situation. You're seeing it in the raked, situation
Right.
for a show here. And then the next picture will kind of show, I got two pictures, will show that these lifts can all be flipped, and you can have a flat floor and have a banquet, have
Mm.
other events. So
Mhm.
this has been um, wildly successful in a very few halls, at least in the States, to where, programmatically you can be doing something at lunchtime,
Mhm.
spend a few hours to transform the room, and you can have, the symphony play that evening or whatever type of program that evening. Here's another picture just kind of showing the depth of these
Mhm.
lifts. So
Mhm.
I think this is just kind of one of the creative and innovative
Mhm.
things that has kind of started happening in these performing arts centers to
Yeah.
allow for them not to be static and only do one thing, because
Right.
the future of the arts and programming is
Mhm.
unknown.
Yeah. Yeah. I had an opportunity to tour this building before, and have you gone up to the stage house yet?
Oh yeah,
Up on the grid.
yeah.
I'm not. I was a little bit nervous about doing that, so I didn't go to that one. But I did get a chance to go to the. It's three halls there, so I went to the. I think the Walt Disney. Went up
Yeah.
on that grid there, but I think this grid in here is 110 feet in the air
Yeah, it's
somewhere.
about
Yeah,
110. Yeah.
yeah,
Unless you can get as skinny as a piece of paper, you're not falling through. So it's just
yeah.
tough.
I got you. Yeah.
And then I just had one more photo, and this is just kind of more architectural. So this is just I think so the team here, Barton Myers was the design architect. HKS Architects was also involved in this project. And then the theater planner was theater projects, and the acoustician was stages with Damian Doria. So again, another kind of A-list team of consultants that helped deliver this project. But this is just kind of this is a picture from basically standing on the audience in the audience chamber, and this white dome is kind of the main ceiling, and then this other lighted dome is the reflector. So just an interesting kind of more architectural photo of how these kind of concentric rings. This is really, well thought out from a design perspective, but still meets all the theater planning and acoustician requirements, but a very kind of unique space, very much one of a kind space. So those are two of the projects I wanted to highlight, but certainly many other projects that we had great experiences on. But I think those two are kind of one that's about a decade old that I got to live on, and then this one just kind of open, which is again went through that kind of COVID period and all the difficulties there, but very successful. And they're off to the races now operationally.
That's awesome. And I know you all just recently opened the Buddy Holly Hall as well, correct?
That's right. So
Lubbock, Texas.
I wasn't specifically involved. So the Buddy Holly Hall is located in Lubbock, Texas. I wasn't specifically involved in that development as I was transitioning to the Garfield team at that time, but Greg Garfield and Rick Wilczak and some others in our office were the key players there. And I've had the opportunity to visit that facility many times because we're working on another project in Lubbock right now, an expo center, about a 9,000 seat event center right now. So, but one thing I can kind of relay, I think, is we kind of hit on the different services that Garfield provides, and we are actually the asset manager on Buddy Holly Hall. So we're deeply involved. Our team is deeply involved with their 501c3 nonprofit and going through strategy with their leadership. Assisting, managing the third party operator that books that building and operates that hall. So it's kind of a continual effort of. I wasn't personally involved in the financing structure or the development of the project, but we're still involved as the asset manager. So there's a lot to learn from how these buildings live over time. What can you do different? How can you apply that to future projects? So that kind of life cycle, being able to see every piece of the puzzle, is just infinitely helpful in the future for future developments that we do.
These are, thanks for sharing those. These are multi-million dollar, $100 million, $300 million projects that you're responsible for carrying all the stakeholders' vision into reality. Does that keep you up at night? You thinking about all the team members, the financing of it. How does that work for you?
The answer is yes, and you can go to the next question.
Okay.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, we're very good stewards of dollars, whether it's philanthropic or from the community. So I think what I'll say is, our ever-changing world that we live in just adds another kind of layer of complexity of what's already pretty challenging to manage a successful project. But I think having a strong, like-minded experts is key around every role on the table. And we really prioritize open communication, collaboration, and being proactive to risk management. So keep us up at night. We're thinking about what to do, which is, I think, helpful. And certainly, while this role comes with challenges, it's also incredibly rewarding to witness a project progress from vision. And certainly, what I've learned over years, and in these past couple of kind of troubled years in the world, what these projects mean to the community continue to prove to me every day that arts are essential. And we have to continue to focus on that for our communities, for our families, for people, that we know. And that's the passion from our team and myself of why we do stay up at night. It's sometimes a requirement.
Right. Well, I have a few more questions, but we get to the point where I always like to ask the experts. Ask the experts question. So you're the expert here, and so you're responsible for leading the selection process of all the team members, specifically the architectural teams, and you see so many different design architects, the star architects, signature architects, or whatever you like to call them. What are some of the key qualities and skills that you look for in a firm when hiring for one of these, Dr. Phillips, Lubbock, Buddy Holly type projects? What are you looking for?
Sure, and the timing of that's a very excellent question, because we here before the end of the year, we're going to start an RFP process for an architect related to the Sarasota Orchestra project that we're working on a music there that we're about to go through a process to select an architect. So this is very fresh on my mind of all the things I've been doing in the office just like this morning.
Well, I'm sure many people will want to hear this.
Yeah. So, I mean, some of it's simple. Obviously, experience in these types of projects. So experience in cultural arts projects. So, we're looking for firms with a proven track record in designing and executing successful, cultural arts projects. I think certainly being creative is a huge piece of this puzzle, having a strong vision and the ability to think outside the box. And, this includes being creative while still being able to design to budget. I mean, that's everyone says design to budget, but does it happen very often? It does. It does with us. It's hard it's a challenge, but it's an important key to making these successful. And I think in today's world, having the flexibility to design a phased project if that's needed. So I think that's becoming more common, that the programs are very robust, but can you accommodate all the program day one? Maybe, maybe not. And we have to explore those opportunities. Certainly being collaborative. So, effective communication and collaboration are critical in these complex projects. I think another key for certainly the architectural firms are the performance requirements. So we're looking for firms that understand the specific needs for performing arts spaces, the client's needs, acoustics, lighting, theater design. Those are additional layers that aren't required on a lot of other developments. So it's a unique, mindset there. A couple others are sustainability. So I think commitment to green building principles is more important than ever, has been for years, but it's just necessary at this point for all projects. And then lastly, I think similar to kind of how we manage projects, it's about passion. So, passion for the arts, a team that shares, genuine passion for the arts and their client mission and vision, they're more likely to invest the kind of extra effort that's needed to make it a success. We all get paid fees to work on these projects, but we work way beyond the hours that a typical consultant, regardless of role, is needed to make it successful. So I think that passion and that love for what you do, that's just incredibly important.
Now, do you look for the big name, or because there's a lot of big names out there, or do you?
It all depends. I mean, sometimes there's a specific donor that has a specific vision and or architect in mind. So you lead down that path. In others, that the program may be more educational, and even working with Nicole, you or in the venue team, we may know that this project can only be a $1,200 square foot or for whatever it is. And in those instances, probably doesn't apply to every architectural firm, and that's okay. So, I mean, the whole star architect type thing, like that's okay on some projects, and some others, it needs to be a different type of group. And, all these teams work very differently. And so we try to help advise in getting kind of a good robust list of folks to reach out to and present to the client, and certainly let the client make that decision on who they want to work with. But it's a challenge. I mean, because there's lots of good firms. I mean, there's not just 3 firms that do all this. There's dozens. So it's a challenge to get the right folks in the room with. But it's part of what we've been doing for years. And again, just trying to find the right partner, whether it's the architect or theater planner or acoustician or whatever. It's about personality and people more than I've done these 5 jobs. At least that's the way I look at it.
Thank you. Well, that's good for that. Yeah, that was good information. Your company is involved with P3 projects. Can you explain to me about the public-private partnership?
Sure. So most of our projects are public-private, to where the private side, the 501c3, is helping raise philanthropic dollars towards whatever this mission or vision is. And in the public sector, a lot of times we promote a tax-exempt bond structure to help make up the difference for whatever this vision or program is. So it's a true partnership to where I think, as I mentioned earlier, this becomes a public asset to the community to where the private side is helping develop it and typically are helping operate it. So a couple of kind of pros to this is, it reduces the initial kind of public cash outlay for a project because there is a private sector piece of this going, going towards development, which typically leads to a potentially earlier guaranteed maximum price, groundbreaking. It's more of an accelerated delivery process. Uh, Also, the kind of life cycle replacement risk and responsibility is transferred to the private sector because they're operating the facility.
Okay.
So that takes a little bit off the public. So lots of our projects, we're not going out for a bond referendum that's going to raise your property taxes or something. This is all done in kind of a tax exempt form where we're not normally ever asking the community to really chip in outside of the film side. And a couple other things, it's a very kind of predictable, on time, on budget delivery. It definitely promotes innovation and efficiency and leads to kind of more predictable, operations and maintenance costs. So again, the full life cycle helps expedite the early financing, fundraising sectors. Development of the project is, I would say, it's more efficient, but it's somewhat static. You still got to build the building and it's going to take 10 or 12 months or 2 years. That's mostly going to be what it is. And then again, it kind of promotes a better operational long-term maintenance for the whatever that facility may be.
I guess with the city and the municipalities have these grand visions of creating a cultural area, a cultural center of their city, and they have these grand visions, but may not have the financing to do it. So that's where this public-private partnership comes into play.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
that's exactly right. But at the same time, and we advise to all of our kind of city clients and future clients that the participation by the public partner is necessary. So it's not, you don't get off for free and don't pay anything. You get rewarded with all these amazing facilities.
Right.
You've got to be a participant in the process. And we're very transparent with that. I mean, in our early, that kind of strategic planning phase of our work, we come down and say, look, in order for this to work, we need the city to contribute 35% or 40% or whatever. And that's pretty common to say, if it's $100 million job, we're going to need $30 million from the city. And what we do is help figure out how to finance that within all the various mechanisms that are available to a municipality. So, but they're a necessary participant, but not at the full 100. So and at the end of the day, they're owning the full $100 million building. So they're getting the asset by only paying a percentage, and it's benefiting the community. So there's lots of good positives there. There's tons of good examples of lots of different projects that have kind of gone down this route.
And you think that's excuse me. Yeah, correct. Right. You think that's the future of getting these buildings built, these cultural facilities built, is the P3 method?
I think it's a great model. There will always be the one-off kind of philanthropic donors that have the capacity to do something big. But I think the P3 model is a great model for cultural venues because it does truly partner the community, the city, whatever, with the philanthropic support that want a whatever music center or museum or whatever kind of cultural center, and it benefits everyone. And the model, it's a great model.
Last couple questions here. I was thinking about the future of live theater and performance, and seeing, during COVID, you saw a lot of things move outside of the building, and it sort of disrupted the whole process. And people were trying to scramble to figure out what are we going to do. I think we sort of passed the COVID portion of it, but it's still sort of in flux and getting back to like a new normal. What do you see for the future of theater and live performance?
So obviously a very interesting couple of years. I think lots of good things to take away from it. I do see some new programs, with immersive technology coming out of nowhere and being very interesting. I think sustainability has become a bigger thing in these projects. But interesting enough, on a lot of the projects that we worked on during that time frame, we didn't recreate what a theater or concert hall needs to be. That's been developed for thousands of years.
Right, right.
So even the projects that we had during design, we didn't scrap it and come up with something totally new.
Mhm.
I think a lot of the ways that we experience art will be similar. Will there be other types of outdoor venues and stuff? Absolutely. But I think when you look at kind of traditional, acoustical, orchestral type music, it's going to be listened in a concert hall, very similar to the halls that we've experienced our whole life. So I think we're getting back to like, that's how you, one, that's how you need to experience it, but two, that's how you stay financially stable because you
Right,
do need to
right.
sell 2,000 tickets, not 800. It
Yeah,
doesn't work. I mean, it worked temporarily in that time frame of like, any income it helps
right,
us
right.
regardless of what it is, but it's not a long-term situation. And then the other thing I'll add is I think these big projects kind of come in waves. And then, so I do see probably in the next 10 to 15, 20 years that we'll be looking at the projects that were built in the 80s and probably renovating for the most part instead of building new. That's kind of
Mhm.
what my gut says, as long as those buildings that were built in the 80s were maintained. So, and I don't know the answer to that around
Yeah, yeah.
every hall in the country.
Right,
Um,
right.
but if they've been well maintained, it's time to, get a fresh look and get a fresh, do. So I think that's probably because there have been quite a few big cultural projects built in the past 10 years, and some that are underway now. So I think it'll always be a mix, but I definitely don't see anything slowing down. I think, we're coming out of whatever this period was the past few years of COVID and a
Mhm.
lot of other, things around the world that have, affected construction costs, but also are you willing to be philanthropic with your efforts, giving those efforts might be going elsewhere to other, world problems that are
Mhm.
happening in our
Right.
communities. So, um, but like I said, I think coming out of it, I think the whole arts are essential thing is proven, and
Mhm.
everybody's coming back, and all the spaces and older projects that we worked on, everybody's coming back to these spaces and they're enjoying it. I think now more than ever because they appreciate it more than they probably did a few years back, which is only helpful for the future.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, I heard someone explain it about designing a building not around a current technology because technology is always advancing. So making the building, a strong 100 year building, but the technology can be changed inside of the building uh, rather easily. So
That's a huge
so
part of it. The more
yeah,
conduit, the better, and the more cable
right,
passes and all that kind
right,
of stuff.
right,
That's not very expensive on day one.
right.
Put it all in because you have no idea what you're going to be doing in 20
Yeah,
years.
yeah, exactly. So, what advice can you give someone wanting to get into your line of work?
But I think people in this role tend to pursue education fields in business, construction
Mhm.
management, architecture, engineering. I think it's important to kind of gain the practical experience to see if this line of work is for you. Certainly understand the dynamics of construction projects and intricacies of the job is important, but I think more important is building, a network of relationships within the industry that's going to take you, a
Mhm.
lot further through the process. And I think certainly attending industry events and joining professional organizations and conferences, that's all incredibly valuable. So I think all that from a background perspective is great, but I think the one kind of odd thing that I've learned is, at least in my role as a, again, development manager, project manager, the psychology part of it was very underestimated from where I started because yes, do
Mhm.
we stay up at night? There's all these complicated things going on, but we're working for a board that has committees and all these executives that are involved in this, and there's a lot of pressure on them too. And we're
Mhm.
there as an extension of them to, deliver these projects, and the dynamics amongst the owner team and I mean even all the design teams. There's lots of complicated conversations that get happen between a architect, acoustician even, but
Right.
all that all those kind of conversations are incredibly key to how, at least the way that I perceive the way I manage projects is, we're there to help everyone. We're obviously there to help the owner, but we're there to help the architect and the theater planner and the structural engineer we're not there to make anybody's life harder. We're not beat them up to get it done type of group. It's a true collaborative process because it is hard, and there's going to be things that come up that we've never dreamed of, and we've got to figure out a path forward. So I think the kind of emotional and psychological management piece of this was, like I said, definitely underestimated by me or in the early going, but it's been a huge piece of, I think, who I've become and why I think I've been, again, privileged to work on, many of these development adventures. So
Awesome. Definitely teamwork makes the dream work. I love that. It's not a one person that gets these types of buildings done. It's everybody working collaboratively and having the same goal and vision. That's great. That's great. So last question is, what's next for you? I think you mentioned Sarasota. What's next for you? Mm-hmm.
So we've got that moving on. We will have hopefully some other fun announcements of new projects that we're undertaking here, maybe even before the end of the year. I hope. I can't say it today.
Yeah.
But we're looking to grow our team a little bit as we get into 2024. Again, we're a small and nimble group, and hopefully can add, a few staff to our team. And we've got a few key, very good developments kind of under key that are ongoing. And we've got probably 3 or 4 things that, hopefully within the next 30 days, we're able to announce. And very exciting ventures staying in the cultural realm, and super excited, and we're happy to share those with your team and others as we get there.
Awesome.
And then I think into the next year, we'll, amongst our overall team, we'll kind of attend the normal kind of P3 conferences and, the performing arts conferences and museum conferences. We kind of all divide and conquer that within our team. So we're not going to see all 12 of us go to all these things, but it's kind of good to get out there with your friends and kind of see what's new and kind of connect with people you haven't, connected with. So I think all good. We've got a good kind of, again, stable workflow, and lucky enough to be able to add a couple of things here before the end of the year, which is pretty exciting.
We were just talking the other day with you mentioned the conferences. We were just talking the other day. It's like there's so many conferences out there. You can literally be at a conference every month. There's so many so many great conferences too that you can be at, but just don't have enough time or the finances to to do that. So yeah. But so final question is, how can our viewers get in contact with you?
So pretty easy to just search on LinkedIn, Matt Edwards or Garfield Public Private. Find me pretty quickly. My email is matt, matt.e at Garfield Public Private, all spelled out. .com. And you can also visit us on our website, again, garfieldpublicprivate.com. You can kind of look at, again, our services, our team, projects, and be happy to chat with anybody, listening today, and sure we can scheme up.
Awesome, Matt. I'll put all the information down below. And like I said, again, thank you for taking out the time to be on the podcast with me. Always a pleasure to talk with you and chat with you. So we'll be seeing you soon, Matt. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, Nakota. Thanks so much.
Take care.
Take care.